Many people spend their whole lives moving things out of their way. They wake up each morning already preparing for resistance. They have learned to expect difficulty. They have learned to push. And somehow, after years of this, they forget that not every obstacle was meant to be moved. But sometimes, the very thing standing in your path is not your enemy. Sometimes, it is the only reason you are still standing. There was once a man named Orin who lived in a valley between two hills. He was a quiet man, a patient man. He had spent 30 years working the same stretch of land, pulling stones from the soil each spring so his crops could grow. His hands were rough, his back was bent. He was not an unhappy man, but he was a tired one. Every year, one particular stone troubled him more than the others. It sat at the edge of his eastern field, large and half buried, like a sleeping animal. He had tried to move it many times. He had dug around it with a spade. He had pressed his shoulder against it until his whole body ached. He had asked neighbors for help, but the stone never moved, not even an inch. Over the years, Orin began to resent it. He saw it every morning through his window. He walked around it every day. He cursed it quietly under his breath when the weather was bad and his mood was low. The stone was, in his mind, the one thing that stood between him and a better life. If only it were gone, he told himself. His field would be larger. His harvest would be richer. He would not feel so defeated. He became so fixed on the stone that he stopped noticing everything around it. He did not notice that birds rested on it during long hot days. He did not notice that small wildflowers had grown in its shade, the kind that attracted the insects that kept his other crops healthy. He did not notice that the stone sat precisely at the line where the ground became soft and waterlogged after heavy rain. His crops grew well because the stone had always marked the safe boundary. He had just never been still enough to see it. One autumn, a young woman came through the valley. She was traveling, carrying almost nothing. She stopped at Orin's fence and asked if she could rest for a while. He brought her water. They sat together near the edge of the eastern field, and she looked out across the land in the calm, wide way that travelers sometimes look at things they have no attachment to. She pointed at the large stone. She said, "That one has been there a long time." Orin said, "Too long. I have been trying to remove it for 30 years. The young woman was quiet for a moment. Then she said something simple. She said, "Have you ever just looked at what it is protecting?" Orin did not answer. That evening, after she had gone, he walked to the stone. He stood beside it. He did not bring a spade. He did not push or pull or dig. He only stood there. He looked at the ground around it. He noticed the wild flowers, small and ordinary, yellow and white. He crouched down and pressed his fingers into the earth just beyond the stone. It was wet, soft, unreliable. He walked a few steps further and felt the ground sink slightly beneath his feet. He stood still for a long time. He had believed for 30 years that the stone was his obstacle. He had never asked what the stone already knew, The obstacle had always been the boundary, the limit, the thing that told him, quietly and without words, "This is as far as it is wise to go." He had been fighting a warning. He had been angry at his own protection. That winter, Orin did not try to move the stone. Instead, he built a low wooden bench beside it. On cold mornings, he would sometimes sit there and watch the frost settle on the field. He did not feel defeated anymore. He felt something different, something closer to understanding. He had not gained anything. The stone was still there. His field was the same size it had always been, but something had shifted inside him. He no longer spent his energy fighting the unmovable. He no longer carried the weight of a 30-year argument with something that had never been his enemy. He began to rest in the mornings instead of grinding his teeth before sunrise. He began to see his land more clearly because he was no longer looking through the narrowness of resentment. He made small improvements he had never had the patience for before. He fixed the fence on the western side. He planted a fruit tree near the house. He helped a neighbor repair a wall that had been broken for years. None of these things happened because the stone was gone. They happened because Orin stopped wasting himself on it. There is a difference between an obstacle that is asking you to push and an obstacle that is asking you to pause. Not every wall is meant to be broken. Some walls are holding up the ceiling. Some closed doors are keeping out the cold. Some heavy stones are marking the edge of solid ground. The hardest wisdom is not learning how to fight. The hardest wisdom is learning to tell the difference between a battle that will make you stronger and a battle that is slowly hollowing you out from the inside. Orin never moved the stone. When he died, many years later, his children found the little bench beside it still standing. They sat there sometimes in the evenings. They said it was a peaceful place. They never knew why their father had built it there, only that it felt like somewhere he had loved. The stone is still there today. Some obstacles are not in your path. Some obstacles are your path. They are the edges of what is solid. They are the markers of what is real. And the people who spend their lives fighting everything that refuses to move often miss the quiet truth that the stone was never against them. It was just standing where it was needed. Not every resistance is opposition. Not every limit is a punishment. And sometimes the thing you have resented the longest is the very thing that has been quietly holding your world in place. So here is something worth sitting with today. Think of the stone in your life, the one you have been fighting for years, the one that has not moved. And ask yourself honestly, have you ever stopped long enough to look at what it might be protecting?